I feel like I'm a table topics because it seems like every time I give a speech, I didn't know it was coming until I get here. So I had a little preparation for this because this is a reprise on the speech I gave that Steve mentioned. I became interested in life as a military wife because one of the members of another club happened to be one. And I thought, oh, she's nothing like mine. Her experiences are different. Her husband was in the Marines. We had some things in common. She had 2 sons who were Marines, one who went another way. I had 3 sons, 2 of whom were in the Army. The other one didn't do anything. Don't laugh. But what really brought me to bringing before you again was 2 people at least were rash enough to say they wanted to hear more. So you're stuck. Never ask me to tell another story because you'll get one. Steve mentioned when I had said that my brother was in Hawaii right after Pearl Harbor. He was a pilot, got his wings out at Lou. He had a crash, and notification of next of kin in those days was pretty bad. Mom got a letter, black around it, and oh, it's dead, because of the letters they usually put black around it. But he was just seriously wounded. Nothing more. They didn't say that he was going to live, he was going to die. 6 weeks went by and she still didn't hear anything, but I happened to have a cousin who was stationed at Pearl Harbor, so she wrote to him and said, find out about my son. He said, well, he's still unconscious in the hospital. He survived, and he died in a plane crash up at Payson in 1947. Then there was something about the one that Paul had a crash out south of Chandler. I knew I was a widow because he was flying in the reserve at the time. I was supposed to pick him up at 5 o'clock at Sky Harbor because that's when they closed everything down. I get out there and there's the hangar empty, but there's a sergeant sitting on the ground, just sitting there. And I said, what happened to Captain Bates? He said, well, he crashed. I thought, well, is he all right? Are they ever? Well, I don't know whether they are or not. So I thought, well, I'm a widow already. And I had 3 kids. What am I going to do? But it turned out that, no pilot error, beware. He was sitting out under the wing of the plane waiting for them to come out from Williams Field to take him in because he just didn't have the whatever it takes to get to Williams Field. So I wasn't a widow that time. Then, in Massachusetts, I got a call on April Fool's Day, and he said, Helen, I have to tell you this, but Paul crashed about a mile short of the runway. Oh, no. Have you thought about what day this is? Isn't that a bad thing to do on April Fool's Day? I'm sorry, but this is the gospel truth. He did crash. Well, is he all right? He said, well, if you give me time, I'll tell you. He's in the hospital. You can go see him now. So I headed over to the hospital, which was just around the corner. Took me about a minute and a half to get there. And I sit there for 30 minutes while people go in and reporters go in, doctors go in. Nothing for me. Is he alive? Is he dead? What's going to happen? Finally, the doctor came out and says, give her a sedative. I still didn't know what it was. I said, you're not going to give me a sedative. I want to know what's happening. They finally let me in. There was nothing wrong with him. They crashed at, he said they touched down in that particular plane at 210 miles an hour. So they weren't going any slower than that, but they did set the forest on fire, also the plane. But he flipped up his goggles and looked over because guy that was doing the flying had gotten out. He said, "You think I was going to stay there and see what's happening to you?" It was hot in there because the plane burst into flames when they hit the first tree. I knew I was going to be a widow at that time because nobody had ever survived that particular crash before, and they had had one not long before that was fatal. So I widow again. Only this time I had 6 kids. What am I going to do? You just live. If I were still in the military, and don't think that the dependents are not in the military. They tell you what to go, what to wear, who to see, what to feed your husband, and they give you a list every quarter comes out. You will not feed your husband the following, and there's cabbage, beans, and way down here. Makes you want to go over to the commissary and buy out everything and feed him nothing but being a good wife occasionally. We didn't do that. But I'm sure it's different now. I got a letter the other day inviting me to a meeting, the 40th year that they've had it, to tell me what they are doing to find my son, who is now missing in action. They know what happened to him. I talked to the guy that was flying with him, another plane. And he said, "I watched him burn. I know exactly where he is, where he went down." So don't trust the military for anything. Read the paper at the bottom of the page. It said everything else is fine if it suits Uncle Sam. Otherwise, you just go on being happy as whatever you are. And I was happy until then. Mr. Toastmaster?